I'm sitting at my kitchen table, the morning sun spilling across my apartment, the smell of coffee lingering in the air. My phone buzzes again, another notification from my brother, probably bragging about his latest engagement plans. I take a slow sip, feeling the warmth against my palms, the silk of my blouse brushing my skin. I tell myself I shouldn't care, that I've moved past the sting of being left out, but the memory flashes anyway. Dad telling me I couldn't go on that $26,000 Dubai trip I had funded myself, all because my brother's fiancée deserved it more. I glance at the framed photo on the counter, me in a crisp blazer, smiling at some work event, looking put together, successful. They don't know the half of it. They think I'm still struggling, that their decision set me back. But life has a way of surprising even the people who believe they have the final word. The text from my dad pops up. Can we talk about Dubai? My heart tightens for a fraction of a second, a mix of irritation and curiosity, before I lean back in my chair. I run a hand through my hair, noticing the chipped nail polish I keep meaning to fix. I know this conversation could open old wounds, or close them in ways they'll never expect. I sip the last of my coffee, letting the bitter warmth settle. It's time to confront the past, but this time, I hold all the power. It was 6 years ago, and I was 24, fresh out of college, proud of my first job and determined to show my family I could stand on my own. I had spent months saving every dollar, working extra hours, and planning the Dubai trip. It wasn't just a vacation. It was a reward to myself, a declaration that I could provide for my own dreams. I remember walking into the living room, my passport and itinerary in hand, excitement bubbling in my chest. Dad, I booked the flights. It's all set, I said, barely able to contain my grin. But the moment I looked up, I saw his expression, hard, dismissive, like I had handed him a bill I didn't expect him to pay. You're not going, he said simply. No explanation, no discussion. My stomach dropped. What do you mean I'm not going? I funded this myself. I felt my hands trembling, a heat rising in my chest, my voice cracking slightly. His eyes softened, but only for a moment before he added, Your brother's fiancée wants to go. It's her first big trip with us. You'll understand someday. My throat tightened. I wanted to scream, to cry, to throw the papers across the room. Instead, I swallowed hard, forcing a calm I didn't feel. I left the house that day carrying nothing but my suitcase and a journal my grandmother had given me before I moved out, a small leather book with her words etched on the inside cover. Never let someone else decide your worth. The world is bigger than any one disappointment. That night, alone in my tiny apartment, I traced the words with my finger, tears streaking my face. The sting of rejection was sharp, but something inside me flickered, a stubborn ember. If they wouldn't see my value, I would. I decided then that I wouldn't just survive this. I would thrive. I would build a life that made their opinion irrelevant, a life where I held the reins. By the time I closed the journal and set it on my desk, I had made a choice. I would no longer let anyone, no father, no brother, no fiancé, dictate my path. I would carve my own. The first few months after that incident were a blur of long hours and restless nights. I poured myself into my work, chasing opportunities that seemed just out of reach. I took freelance projects, small gigs, anything that could keep the lights on and my bank account growing. Every paycheck was a tiny victory, a quiet rebellion against the family that had doubted me. It was during one of those late nights, hunched over my laptop in a tiny coffee-stained studio apartment, that I met Claire, a seasoned marketing strategist who would become my mentor. She had an uncanny ability to see potential where others saw nothing, and she didn't just believe in my ideas. She challenged me to push harder, to think bigger. You're aiming too low, she told me one evening, her eyes sharp yet kind. You're not playing for pennies, you're playing to win. I took her words to heart. Days blurred into weeks, weeks into months. I studied relentlessly, devouring books and webinars, testing strategies, learning from mistakes. There were moments when doubt crept in, when I questioned whether I was good enough or if I'd just built a castle on sand. But I kept going, fueled by the memory of that trip, by the injustice of being told my own plans didn't matter. My first breakthrough came with a modest but high-profile client. The thrill of seeing a campaign I had built from scratch perform beyond expectations was intoxicating. I remember the first time a client called just to thank me, their excitement echoing my own, validation I hadn't received from my family. Slowly, quietly, my life began to change. I moved into a loft that overlooked the city skyline, a space filled with books, sketches, and photos of moments I had captured on my own terms. My finances stabilized, then flourished. I made strategic investments, reinvested in my work, and learned to negotiate deals with confidence I had never known before. Through it all, I never posted my triumphs on social media. My family continued to believe I was managing a modest life, unaware of the reality just beyond their knowledge. I shared only glimpses, small, casual updates that painted a picture of ordinary success, never the full story of how I had clawed my way to independence. Evenings became my sanctuary. I would sit by the floor-to-ceiling windows, city lights twinkling below, and let myself imagine the Dubai skyline, the one I had been denied, and smile, quietly, at the thought that one day they would see me differently. The sting of being removed from that trip had been sharp, but it had become the catalyst for everything I had built. Now, I held a world they couldn't take from me, and every day, I reminded myself that my worth was mine alone to define. The memory of that rejection was no longer a wound. It was the fire that had forged me. It was a crisp Saturday morning when they arrived, my father, my brother, and, of course, his fiancée. They expected the same me they had always known. Quiet, accommodating, still measuring her worth by the family's approval. What they walked into, however, was a world of my making. The door opened to reveal my loft, a space flooded with sunlight, the walls adorned with abstract paintings I had commissioned, the sleek desk in the corner stacked with awards and contracts. A rich aroma of fresh coffee lingered, a subtle nod to the countless nights spent planning, creating, and building. I stood in the center, dressed simply but elegantly, a gentle smile on my lips. The woman they thought they had sidelined was nothing like the timid girl they remembered. Dad's eyes widened, a flicker of recognition, and perhaps guilt, crossing his face. My brother's fiancée stiffened, shifting uncomfortably as her gaze darted from the art to the city skyline visible through the floor-to-ceiling windows. "Wow," my brother finally muttered. This is yours." I nodded, walking slowly toward the kitchen island. My movements were calm, deliberate.
Yes.
Every bit of it. And not a penny came from anyone but me. Dad's mouth opened, closed, then opened again, as if words were failing him. "But I thought." "You thought I couldn't make it on my own?" I said softly, letting each word linger. "You thought taking me off that Dubai trip would set me back, that it would diminish me. Instead, it lit a fire inside me I didn't even know I had." I gestured to the neatly framed contracts and financial reports stacked on the counter. "I funded the trip myself, yes. But the skills I honed, the clients I earned, the independence I built, it didn't stop there. I built a company. I own my success, my choices, my life. And today you're seeing it firsthand." Their reactions were a study in disbelief. My father's hands fidgeted. My brother's face drained of color, guilt written in every line. His fiancée avoided my gaze, suddenly aware that the world she had thought she was stepping into was not what she imagined. I allowed them a moment, letting the silence stretch. It wasn't cruelty, it was gravity. This was the moment they had underestimated me, and now they were forced to reckon with it. "Do you see now why removing me from that trip didn't just hurt me?" I asked, my voice steady, resonant. "It could have, maybe even should have, broken me. But instead, it made me stronger." Every setback became a stepping stone. I walked over to the window, overlooking the skyline, the city spread out below like a canvas of possibilities. I've learned that the people who try to control your story aren't the ones who get to write it. I did. Dad swallowed hard, finally nodding, a flicker of acknowledgement in his eyes. My brother looked at me, stunned, as if seeing me for the first time, while his fiancée's lips pressed into a thin line, understanding the gravity of what she had just witnessed. For the first time in years, I felt no resentment, only clarity. I had turned their doubt into my fuel, their rejection into my triumph. And in this room, filled with sunlight and evidence of every hard-fought victory, they could no longer deny it. I let the room settle into silence, letting them absorb the reality before I spoke again. This wasn't about revenge. It was about balance, about reclaiming the respect I had earned. I took a deep breath, feeling the sunlight warm my face, the faint hum of the city below like a heartbeat matching my own. Now, I began, my tone calm but firm. We need to talk about what comes next. Their eyes shifted nervously, unsure whether to expect anger or generosity. I offered neither, just clarity. To Dad, I said first, turning to him. If you want to be part of my life moving forward, there has to be honesty. No more undermining my decisions. No more dismissing my ambitions. You've been given a second chance, not by me but for yourself, to support your children as equals, not as people you decide the value of. He nodded slowly, guilt and recognition mixed in his expression. Then to my brother. You need to learn that life isn't about being first or favored. It's about responsibility and integrity. Stop assuming the world bends for you, and start building something that makes you proud on your own terms. His jaw tightened, but he remained silent, clearly processing the weight of my words. Finally, I faced his fiancée. You're welcome in my life if you respect it, not claim it. I won't allow entitlement to replace effort. If you want to join this family as it is now, it has to be as someone who uplifts, not replaces or manipulates. I paused, letting each condition settle. My voice softened, a subtle warmth beneath the firmness. I'm not asking for perfection. I'm asking for growth. I'm asking for honesty, accountability, and the courage to let go of old patterns that hurt all of us. I could see the shift in the room, the tension easing just slightly, replaced by recognition of the truth. They were no longer in control, I was. And for the first time, I felt no need to apologize for that. I care about all of you, I said, my eyes meeting theirs one by one. But care isn't enough. Love isn't enough. Change is what matters. Start with that, and maybe one day we'll meet on the same level. The sunlight caught the edge of my grandmother's leather journal, left casually on the counter, its pages a silent reminder of the words that had guided me. Never let someone else decide your worth. That same fire still burned inside me, but now it illuminated the path for them as well, if they chose to walk it. I stepped back, letting the city skyline fill my gaze, and allowed myself a quiet, private smile. I had taken the power back. I had turned rejection into authority, hurt into lessons, and anger into direction. They could either rise or falter, and for the first time it was entirely their choice. Weeks passed, and I watched quietly as my father, brother, and even his fiancée began to navigate the new boundaries I had set. My father started calling, not to critique, but to ask advice, to share moments without undermining my decisions. My brother enrolled in a professional development course, something he had joked about avoiding for years, and slowly began to take responsibility for his own ambitions. Even his fiancée made small but meaningful efforts, listening, learning, and stepping into a role that was supportive rather than intrusive. I observed these changes with a sense of calm satisfaction, not prideful gloating. The power shift hadn't been about proving them wrong. It had been about reclaiming myself, asserting my boundaries, and giving them a chance to rise alongside me. And they were beginning to do just that in their own imperfect human ways. One evening, I found myself alone in the loft, the skyline glowing gold as the sun dipped below the horizon. I reached for my grandmother's leather journal, tracing the words she had written years ago. Never let someone else decide your worth. I smiled softly, remembering the nights of tears, frustration, and doubt. Those moments had been painful, yes, but they had forged the woman I was now, strong, confident, and unapologetically independent. I thought about the Dubai trip, the sting of being removed from it, and how that single event had shaped everything. I no longer felt anger when I pictured the city lights of Dubai. Instead, I felt gratitude. Gratitude that I had turned rejection into fuel, that I had built the life that no one could take from me, and that I had emerged from the shadows of doubt stronger than ever. Sitting there, bathed in twilight, I realized something profound. Independence wasn't just about financial success or career achievements. It was about claiming your narrative, standing tall in your truth, and allowing others into your life only on terms that honored your journey. I closed the journal, feeling its weight settle comfortably in my lap. My eyes drifted back to the city beyond the glass, a soft smile tugging at my lips. I whispered to no one in particular, the final affirmation of a journey hard-earned but wholly mine. I am not defined by their choices. I am defined by my courage, my resilience, and the life I have built. And for the first time in years, I felt fully, undeniably free.